everyone.
Hi. We want to welcome you to Inclusion Done Right. I am Cindy Schultz.
Candice Stump, and we have with us today.
And I'm Dan Streeter.
And Dan is our superintendent.
Proud superintendent of the Humboldt Unified School District.
Yay.
So we're super excited that we finally reeled you in.
I know. I was excited I finally got an invite to this thing.
Hey.
It did take a little bit. We wanted to make sure we got things rolling.
I actually had to bring you on the radio show.
Right. So we had to size you up.
That's true. That's true.
It's cool. And it's summertime, so he's not so busy, she's not so busy. Me, I'm busy, but that's okay. I'm glad I have...
It's reversed now, right? Because everyone has the kids at home.
It is, but guess what? Emily is getting paid respite, so she needs all the hours she can get.
And you then can have time to relax, or at least do some Cindy time.
I do a lot of blog work
You're doing
right now.
Yep.
I'm educating myself because I'm still really new
That's
at all this. So we are here to talk to Mr. Streeter. Do you want us to call you Mr. Streeter?
Or Dan.
Or Dan, whichever you
prefer.
No, we'll call you. What are you comfortable with? Because he's your boss.
Dan works.
Dan,
Dan
okay.
Works,
so we're here with Dan. So let's dive into this.
Yeah. So I say, first tell us what does a superintendent do? Like, what is your job?
Yeah, boy, that's I get that question a lot, actually. And it's pretty complex because when you think about the superintendent, it's really the chief executive officer of the district. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about overseeing 700 employees. You're overseeing 5,700 students and the families that go with that. You're looking at about a $30 million budget. So we're looking at the academic side of school. We're looking at the operational side, the maintenance, transportation, IT, information technology, each of those pieces. So my job is to really try to create the conditions necessary so that everybody else can do what's best for kids.
Right, they can do their jobs.
And that's ultimately what I do.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's a big job.
It is a big job. I think sometimes that gets lost in translation. I don't think people understand what would that translate to, right? What would that translate to in the private sector? If you're talking about a CEO that oversaw 700 employees, and what does that job look like? I think we know that, but we don't necessarily.
Right, we don't associate it.
Always understand that that's what this position is.
Yeah, that's good. So what did you do before you became a superintendent?
So this is, I have an interesting background that might be appropriate for this.
Yeah.
My start in education was actually as a special education parapro.
Yes.
And then I moved into a teaching position. I taught special education for several years. Loved it. Taught in a lot of different areas of special education. I've really worked with all different types of students, primarily at the secondary level, but with disabilities, I've really covered the gamut. Had the opportunity to move into administration, and really that was when I talk to teachers about going into administration, you usually get I would miss the kids. And what I always told people was, if you didn't play baseball for me or you weren't in special education, I really didn't know who you were.
Right.
And when I went into administration, I was able to develop relationships with all the kids on the campus. And so I think sometimes people don't see that big picture. But worked as an assistant principal, moved up here over 10 years ago now, which is hard to believe. I was the principal at Bradshaw Mountain High School, and then moved over to the district office. And we're going to be going into, I think, year 5. As superintendent, year 4 or 5. They all run together.
Yeah, I know, right? After a while, you're like, I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a while. I'm just doing my job.
Yeah. It's good. I remember when you switched from being the principal to being superintendent, because I didn't have any kids in the high school and stuff, but my friends were like, oh, he's leaving. So it's good. So
yeah, so that's nice history of how you got to be where you're at now. What are your aspirations? What do you want to continue to do professionally?
Well, let's go back for a second and talk about what really drove me into the field of special education.
Okay.
And when I was working as a paraprofessional, I think like most people that go into education, you don't necessarily choose that first position. You're kind of thrown into it. And for me, I was working with students in a middle school who had various needs. And what really kind of hit home with me was I was working with a group of kids that, for whatever reason, had been dealt kind of a crummy hand. Whether it was a reading disability or an emotional handicap, whatever the case may be, the game wasn't fair for them from the beginning. And what really drove me into teaching special education was a want to make sure that the game would be played fair for these kids. And that's what drove me into teaching special education. That's what continues to drive me now. So to your question, what are my aspirations? I think as a superintendent, it's continuing to influence policy. It's continuing to influence practice that makes sure that regardless of a student's background, that the game is played fair for them and opportunities are provided for them. And so that's about our inclusion model here in Humboldt. It's about our special education students being educated in their neighborhood school with their peers. It's about our Advanced Placement Academy kids given the same opportunities as any other student would be given across the country. That's a big reason why we offer more advanced placement courses than any other district in the area. So regardless of what a student's background is, what we've tried to do in this district is continue to push those opportunities. So that's really what my aspirations are, is to continue to make sure that we can elevate the opportunities for our kids.
And it fits with our,
totally
our inclusionary
fits.
practices. Cindy always cries.
I always cry.
Anyway.
It's good. It's just so personal. It's just so neat that, we've got the perfect storm here in Humboldt. Honestly, we interviewed Patty last week, and it was amazing. Gosh darn it. I am so
you
sorry.
See what she does.
I know. Look at
So Kaya
Kaya's
comes
here.
over.
You probably don't see her right now. But
The emotional
she's
support
like,
dog comes
it
over
is
and makes
just
sure
so
you're okay.
hugely important for me as a parent to have my district there, because you guys are backing me up. You guys are I call our teachers partners in parenting, and because that's what you're doing. And it was a late night. I'm just, but it's so neat to hear your background, because I've never really sat down and talked with you and how that's all set up. And I've talked about this a lot. I have a lot of friends who are in all sorts of districts all around Arizona, and not just Arizona, that don't have what we have. And so my goal is to make this, and I think our goal through Inclusion Done Right is to make this more accessible.
Yeah, and I think it's, one of the challenges of where we are is we really, you look at the teacher shortage that's taking place on a national level, and it's hit Arizona especially hard, and it's really hit us. It's really exacerbated up here when you talk about cost of living and inability to get voter initiatives passed.
Right.
It's created a perfect storm in that area where the teacher shortage has made it difficult to expand our inclusion programs at really the rate that we would like to.
Right.
But we've tried to be very intentional with getting exemplary models out there. And we have a couple in the district, and we continue to push that out so that everybody can get a clear idea of where we're going. But at the end of the day, and this is, I said this already, and I'll probably say it again before the end of this, it's critically important to me that we remember that our schools serve as neighborhood schools.
Right.
And that when kids live in a neighborhood with other kids, they need the opportunity to attend the same school as their peers. They shouldn't have to attend a separate school.
Right.
We're not 100% there, and we have to meet the needs of each individual student,
Right.
and that will continue to be a challenge. But the ultimate goal is educating kids in their neighborhood school, and then doing it in a way so that they're interacting with the peers in their classroom. And we know that that's what's best for kids on both ends of that relationship.
It totally is. I have, this year, Jillian, who's going into 6th grade, but all year she was on the Gen Ed bus, which the bus stop's just right around the corner from my house. And by the end of the year, she was like, "Mom, don't pick me up. Don't take me." And fortunately, Joe was with her. But because my kids are being taught with with their gen ed peers, I can trust a lot of those kids
Right.
to have her back while she's out of my reach. And so this next year is a little nerve-wracking for me because Joe's in middle school and won't be on the same
But
bus.
as you said, though, it's nice to be able to know that she has already built those relationships. So
Right.
those kids have, the trust is there, the love is there, the support is there, which goes back to what Mr. Streeter is saying, the importance of having those kids are the ones that are coming over to the house. Those
Right.
kids are the ones in your neighborhood that are coming over, to play, that are waiting for the bus with her.
That are calling me and asking me if they could come spend the night at
Right.
my house
Right.
with my child with Down syndrome. And that is huge. I have had one of Jillian's friends were like, my mom's off work. Can you meet her? And it's so sweet. And everyone knows Ben, and it's just even more so now that we can be out in the community and their friends come up to them,
Right.
and it's just so huge. So.
Well, and I think one of the things that anybody that's new to the area or new to the district, the first thing that jumps out at you are our kids. And our kids really create a welcoming environment. Our kids are very inclusionary themselves. And I think sometimes we search for the barriers, but in reality, we're the ones that create those barriers.
Exactly.
And giving kids those opportunities for interaction will continue to help them grow in each of those relationships as well.
And that's something that I do as a parent is real. I realize that my kids are growing up in an inclusive environment, and those kids, their peers, are growing up in an
Right.
inclusive environment. Their peers' parents did not. I didn't grow up in an inclusive environment,
Right.
and so the parents didn't either. So I kind of have taken on this task too, is that it's my job to help the other parents to understand inclusion and to just meet my kids and not be afraid. So
Right.
whenever I can be available for parents,
Right.
I'm
Well,
there.
and that too, we've talked before all the time about. I shared a story with you the other day about Ben, and I'm trying to figure out boundaries with this because, like you said, everyone knows Ben. I mean, Ben is a social, icon in Prescott Valley
Right.
because he knows no strangers.
He does,
Right.
right.
I mean, he's
Right.
just got that piece to who he is as a human. I wish I had that.
I know, right?
I need some of that
I
to
meet
rub
so
off on
many
me.
people because of Ben.
I know.
Like, we go to the pool and he's like in all these people's business, and I'm like,
Right.
I'm sorry, and they're like, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
But here at school, I mean, he will be, he comes into the front office. He's everywhere. He's socializing and interacting with everyone. And adults will be coming in and they'll be having conversations. Like parents will just walk in, to talk to their kids or pick up their kids. And Ben is there and they're like, hey Ben, how's it going? Like, what's up? Give me 5. And most kids, you're like, is this okay? Like, is it appropriate? But it's Ben. That's
Ben.
who he is as a human. And so he's having those interactions with adults as well, which is preparing them to be okay with that
Right.
and okay with approaching
Right.
and having those conversations,
Right.
which is so neat
It
to
is
see.
neat.
Yeah.
It is neat.
You're really learning on both sides, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about social skills are a pretty typical IEP goal, right, for a special education student. There's some type of social skill
Right.
activity in there. But what we're talking about is while we're working on those, there's also this other component too that our gen ed kids can learn from, and it's this idea of being a little bit more of an extrovert, not being afraid to approach people and have that conversation. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to see it happening in action.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. And that's why I get all emotional, because I'm living the dream here. Honestly, as a parent of kids with that are differently abled, I am totally living the dream, and I almost feel like sometimes I have to pinch myself because it's true. But the thing is it needs to not just be available for our district.
Right.
It needs to be available for everyone.
Right.
And so we live in a smallish area. We have a lot of retirement people here. A lot of people moving in from California, which is why it's the cost of living is up and everything.
Right.
And so earlier you touched on the different initiatives that we've tried to have passed, and often people go, well, I already paid my dues. My kid's not in school. What would you like to say about about the responsibility for our community. And
Well, I think not really pointing at any individual, but
Right.
I think unfortunately we're at a time when we have too many people that refer to themselves or see themselves as taxpayers and not as citizens. And when we can reframe that and start to see ourselves as citizens, it changes what our approach should be, and it should, and then it becomes where we're how do we take care of everybody, right? How do we work together? And that's where you really can create a productive, vibrant community, and we have it. I mean, it exists.
yeah, in small
but there's an
pockets,
opportunity
kind of.
to expand
it
that
could be bigger,
influence.
right. Like where we live, we have our neighbors are amazing, and
Right.
they love my kids and all of my kids, but again, that should be offered to everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody should have that opportunity. So.
So I see we're coming up on our break, so I know time
It's
goes so
good.
fast.
And
we're
I
just
think my
chatting.
phone rang halfway through there. So you heard a little
a little buzz.
a little, no, it wasn't a buzz. It was, it's The Greatest Showman. Yeah, that was that. So we will be back with Dan, and we'll be talking more and more about inclusion and the process going on here at Humboldt Unified. Don't forget to follow us. I always forget this, and every week I say I always forget this. Don't forget
All your followers.
to put your email into nevereasyalwaysgood.com. Follow us on Facebook, comment and share and like our posts on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and then we have Pinterest too, where we have a lot of great ideas.
Yeah,
for
so
you.
make sure too when you watch the video. I just noticed this when I was looking.
What?
I try to always go to your YouTube channel. Never Easy,
Always Good.
and subscribe to
Subscribe to it,
and
yes.
then like the videos because that's going to drive her numbers up, which is going
Right.
to get us to get our message out.
Yeah, so then when people are searching for inclusive education or anything like that, they'll see
Yep.
inclusion done right.
Perfect.
So
All right.
we'll see you guys in a little bit.